So there's no points of difference between the traditionally held Indian system of diet and nutrition and what you're proposing?
Not really. There's not much of a departure from there, except they are big believers in milk and dairy, and I'm not.
Okay.
And they were big believers, I think, in the old system of milk and dairy. Yeah. But the new system just doesn't work. So that's where we differ. And of course, in strict Ayurvedic traditions, sugar, refined sugar is not a very big thing. And in my philosophy as well, I don't believe in it.
I think it didn't exist then. Sugar
did not exist. Yeah. So they advocate things like gur, which has enzymes and things, and that also I take off the table.
Okay. You're not letting that also
No, because I feel it processes the same way in the body. So that's not really something I advocate unless you're in great health condition and your body can take it.
I'm a gur fan, so...
Yeah, so if you're in great condition...
No,
then,
but still...
yeah, then it's allowed. Otherwise, it's off the table.
Okay. So a lot of people, I see, these days you get a lot of tips, through websites and general health sites, and a lot of concerned people forward you WhatsApp messages which are, So I hear prominent dietitians saying that, you can have the rice and you can have the ghee and you can have everything is there. Of course, the normal caveat is in moderation. But when you say that, it's not off the table, it is there. So it is a bigger temptation for people to listen to that more carefully. Are there any food besides what you already mentioned, sugar and dairy?
Yeah, I feel if it's not going to make, my criteria for taking it off the table is making good blood or not. It's as simple as that. So if dairy isn't going to make good blood condition, it's off the table. Especially for someone who's suffering with a problem, right? Maybe someone who isn't suffering and who is of great health condition. And when I talk suffering, there are grades of suffering. Someone could be getting a migraine. Someone could be getting an allergy. Someone could be getting a really serious irritable bowel disorder. It really depends. So in those cases, in fact, 99.9% of the time, I'm like, dairy is out.
Okay.
Right? Then there's sugar. Then there's white refined flour. Then white rice is actually sugar and starch.
But a lot of people say that.
But a lot of people are eating it, and a lot of people in the South thrive on it. But constitutionally, the South Indians are kind of having it also because they make balance with all their idli, dosa, and fermentation. South Indians are very big on fermentation, and that's the cornerstone of what I do. So the point is that, are you making balance? Now, if you're going to tell people living in the metros that it's okay to do this in moderation and that in moderation and this in moderation, then that person's following a calorie-based approach.
Yes.
And that's not my approach in any case, right? It's not a calorie in, calorie out approach. It's not a only protein, carbohydrate, and fat, and you balance that approach. That's not my approach in any case. It's a very scientifically based approach on what your condition is, what your constitution is, where do you come from, what are the problems that you have, what are the foods that you abuse to get to the problem, how am I diagnosing your organs, how are your meridian lines.
Sorry, how are you diagnosing my organs?
So I'm qualified to diagnose your organs on the facially.
Okay.
So I can actually see what your organs look like, the health of your organs. And if I find that something is off, then I have the ability to go to that particular meridian line and look for an imbalance in the meridian line to see how badly off you could be.
Okay, so this is this diagnostic is a part of the
it's a part of my
training
consulting.
That you have?
It's a part of my training.
Okay.
So if we know that, let's say you have a stomach issue, and I look at your large intestine meridian, and I find that there's a problem. And I look at the severity of the problem, and I find that, listen, there are ways to do that because you've been trained, that it really needs attention. There are definitely going to be some foods that I will pull off the chart.
Okay.
Meat would be one of them. Okay, if it's a serious digestive issue. Any kind of non-vegetarian food would be one of them.
Complex foods, which are difficult.
Yeah, no, difficult foods to digest. Gluten would be another, right? So you cannot have a blanketed approach to anything because every person's unique.
So if I understand correctly, your prescriptive approach is based on macrobiotic diet and its principles.
Yes.
Whereas your diagnostics are on diagnosing organs through reading the face, through meridian lines, which are also part of macrobiotic
Yes,
diet
yes.
training.
It's all a part of the traditional Chinese medicine, the Oriental
Okay.
system of diagnosis. That's where we start the framework from. And then it's also based on constitutionally, like we have something, we use two terms called yin and yang.
Okay.
So constitutionally, are you a yang person? Are you a yin constitution? What I go through, you may not go through. So I may be able to take a bowl of yakni pulao or something like that. You might not be able to take it. You know what I mean? Because constitutionally we are different.
Isn't conditioning a part of that? Say, I've been having yakni pulao since childhood, wouldn't I be more prone to accepting it?
No, constitutionally you are determined to do that. So the parents give you your blueprint, which is your constitution. So let's say constitutionally you were born from in the North Indian tradition, and your parents were also, you know, both North Indians and were coming from the lineage where they, you know, meat eating tradition was in their genes and their blood. Then the chances are you will have inherited the same thing. However, giving you my example, I came from a tradition where my father hailed from that tradition, but my mother was a vegetarian, so was my grandmother. So maybe my side of the genes were actually not meant to digest the meat, and that's where my stomach started really getting affected.
So your second